There used to be this kid at my school named Brent. Brent caught a lot of heat from almost everyone, behind his back and his face. He was quick to yell, quick to shove, quick to make a scene. Some of it felt learned at home. Ideas he repeated that clashed with everything we heard in class. He wasn't easy to be around. He'd argue with teachers, snap at kids, and he smelled like sour Jim socks half the time. Once, after a girl turned him down, he harassed her so badly he almost got expelled. If that had happened, maybe things would be different. It really started in American history. Brent stopped the lesson to correct our teacher, Mr. Alvarez, about the Civil War. Mr. Alvarez stayed calm, laid out the facts, and shut it down. Brent went red, started shouting about how the country was ruined. We rolled our eyes. A few people laughed, and Brent stormed out. It was a Friday. Over the weekend, Brent posted a string of stories. Pictures of him with pieces from his dad's gun collection. A selfie in front of a hateful flag. Worst of all, a printout of Mr. Alvarez's face taped to a cardboard box. Holes punched through it. The caption, "Ready for Monday." A lot of us had joked for years that Brent might do something. None of us thought he actually would. People sent screenshots to the school. What we should have done was call the police. I didn't. If I had, I wouldn't have set foot on campus until someone handled it. Monday, fourth period, word spread that Brent had come in late. He tried to get to our wing. The school resource officer and 2 admins stopped him and told him to hand over his bag. That's when he pulled a pistol, shot the officer, and ran. I heard the crack from the other side of the building. Silence fell, heavy and unreal. Then the lockdown alert hit our phones and the intercom. We all knew who it was. Monday, fourth period, word spread that Brent had come in late. He tried to get to our wing. The school resource officer and 2 admins stopped him and told him to hand over his bag. That's when he pulled a pistol, shot the officer, and ran. I heard the crack from the other side of the building. Silence fell, heavy and unreal. Then the lockdown alert hit our phones and the intercom. We all knew who it was. Mr. Alvarez went white, then moved. Lights out, door locked, shades down, everyone to the corner. We pressed into a tight, shaking knot. Those dumb drills didn't feel dumb anymore. Brent reached our door in under a minute. He pounded the metal and yelled, "I know you're in there." Someone sobbed into a sleeve to keep quiet. Phones lit up faces. People texted parents. Some hit go live. All I could think was, this is how I die, sitting on a tile floor in the dark with my classmates. A single shot exploded outside our room. Screams burst out. Panic surged. A rush toward the windows. I sprinted to the far one, second floor, and fumbled with the latch. Hands shoved me aside. Someone tripped. Glass rattled, but didn't give. I looked back at the door window. Brent was doubled over, clutching his face, blood leaking through his fingers. The inside handle hung crooked, bent at a weird angle. He staggered, stumbled down the hall, left a spray across the floor. "Get away from the windows, back, back," Mr. Alvarez hissed. I couldn't move. "It's him," I whispered. "I think he shot himself." A friend slid to the door and peeked through the pane. We both heard Brent's cries echoing down the corridor, ragged and pained, growing fainter. I tried the door. It didn't budge. Not the lock. The whole mechanism was mangled. We were trapped, but he was gone. Hours later, SWAT cleared our room. We filed out, slow and blinking, and learned the pieces. Brent had fired at the door hardware, trying to force it. Metal blew apart. Shards came back at him. A fragment hit his eye. He ran, then surrendered. The officer he shot pulled through and recovered. Brent was tried as an adult. He'll be in prison for a long time. I replay that morning more than I want to admit. How easy it felt to ignore the warnings, to assume Monday would be normal. How fast a corridor can go from ordinary to nightmare. And how a locked door, plus a calm teacher, save an entire class. If you ever see posts like that, don't wait. Call. Send the screenshots. Make someone take it seriously. You won't look paranoid. You'll look right. And you might save lives. My high school sits a few blocks from a neighborhood with a lot of gang activity. Because of that, lockdowns were normal. Sirens, rumors, text chains lighting up. We'd huddle in corners, wait out, and go back to algebra. But the only time I was actually scared had nothing to do with a fugitive on the loose. It was because of a student everyone already knew was dangerous. His name was Kieran. He was scary smart, the kind of kid who crushed tests but crashed into people. Authority was a suggestion to him. Focusing was a joke. Friendship didn't stick. He'd already been suspended for bringing a knife, expelled for trying to strangle a teacher with a shoelace, and then, somehow, he was back after months at an intervention school. When he returned, he seemed sharper on the edges. I ended up stuck with him once in the front office. Different infractions, same waiting room chairs. The assistant principal was backed up, so we just Saturday. Kieran talked. He told me about the kids at the other school. Arson cases, small-time dealers, kids in gangs. He sounded thrilled, said he made friends. Honestly, his stories were wild enough to be entertaining, until he dropped one line that turned my stomach. He said someone there had taught him how to make a bomb. Before I could ask if he was joking, the AP called his name and he vanished into her office. That was the first and last real conversation I had with him. It was weird because he seemed happy that day. Like remembering chaos made him glow. I wanted to believe he might be getting better. Now I know the only thing that made him happy was imagining ways to hurt people. 2 weeks later, second period on a sweaty Tuesday, he called in a bomb threat. Security caught him fast, but he wouldn't say where anything was. We were evacuated, a river of students pushing toward the football field, staff waving us on, radios crackling. My stomach flipped when I spotted Kieran's clear backpack propped against a hallway wall, the inside stuffed with a black trash bag tied tight. I told an administrator. She called in immediately. We kept moving. I felt lucky it hadn't gone off with 1,000 kids shoulder to shoulder. We sat on the metal bleachers, sealed in a lockdown mode in the open air. No shade, no breeze, just heat and nerves. Bomb squad had to be called, the building had to be swept, and every minute stretched like taffy. I went from scared, to annoyed, to bored, to restless. I joked with the guys next to me, pretended I was fainting from the heat, asked for a spot on the chaise lounge. No one moved, so I sprawled across their feet for laughs. That's when I saw it. Under the seat in front of my face, taped to the frame, sat a small box mummified in duct tape. A note was stuck to it. This is the real one. I swear, everything in me iced over. I shoved my friend's legs aside to get a better look. His annoyed face changed when he saw mine. He was sitting on top of the bomb. I bolted, jumped from the bleacher, twisted my ankle, and started yelling before my brain caught up. Panic detonated. Students screamed, surged, poured down the steps and over the rails. Freshmen got knocked over. Someone broke an arm. Kids spilled through the gates and into the street. A bunch just ran all the way home. In seconds, the field went from crowded to almost empty. If Kieran ever heard how we scattered, he would have laughed himself sick. Here's the worst part. None of it was real. Not the backpack, not the bleacher box, not any of the packages they found. They were props, meant to terrify, meant to create chaos, meant to make the day explode without explosives. Kieran was smart enough to make the real thing. He didn't, because his goal wasn't decades in prison. It was to get kicked back to juvie or an intervention program where he could feel important again. All that fear, the injuries, the man-hours, it was a performance. What makes me shudder is knowing that if he had decided to go through with it, people would have died. I might have been one of them. Our response had a huge blind spot. We clustered the entire student body in one place, stacked like targets. If those devices had been real, the safe zone would have been the worst place to stand. I don't know where Kieran is now. I hope he stays a long way from me, and from every school for the rest of his life. If you ever hear a threat, report it beyond the school. Send the screenshots, call it in. Better awkward than tragic. I grew up in Oklahoma, right in the middle of Tornado Alley. Extreme weather drills were just part of life. Long before schools worried about all the other emergencies, we were practicing what to do when the sky tried to kill us. Back in the 90s, in middle school, I remember those drills clear as day. We'd line hallways, lights shut off, knees tucked, heads down, hands over our necks. It was this strange position, half crouched, half folded over, and honestly, it felt humiliating. As a girl, I hated it most of all. Every month, at least once, I had to crouch down like that, rear end in the air, while teachers walked up and down the hall. No matter how much I complained, I had no choice. I came to dread those tornado drills more than the tornadoes themselves. At least with a tornado, the odds were slim it would actually hit. But the drills? They always came. And sometimes, it wasn't just a drill. One day in May, 7th grade, the storm wasn't pretend. I was in one of those portables, the cheap little classroom buildings they stuck outside the school when they ran out of space. They weren't portable at all. They were just flimsy walls, thin doors, and floors that shook if someone stomped too hard. When the alarms blared, we were rushed into the main building. Portables weren't safe, not even a little. We left our bags, our books, everything. The teachers told us this was a real one, an extreme cyclonic thunderstorm with a high chance of spawning tornadoes. At that age, those words didn't mean much to me. But now I know exactly how serious that was. At first, I felt a weird mix of excitement and nerves. I thought maybe it'd be thrilling seeing a storm up close. Part of me even hoped there would be a tornado. It would make all those embarrassing drills worth it. That hope didn't last long. The natural light coming through the doors and windows faded. In minutes, it was darker than night. The wind slammed the doors like fists. Then the hail came, sheets of ice battering the walls so loud it felt like the sky was breaking apart. The chatter in the hallway stopped. Everyone went silent, listening. And then we heard it. The sound no Oklahoman forgets. That deep, rolling roar, like a freight train rushing past. Low at first, then louder and louder, until it filled your chest and rattled your bones. The tornado was close. Kids started crying. Teachers tried to shout over the storm, telling us to stay calm, but their voices were shaking. When the walls began to tremble, they crouched down too. Suddenly, there was no hierarchy. No teacher, no student, just human beings in the same desperate pose, praying we'd survive. The air itself vibrated. We heard debris slamming into the doors, shattering glass, wood groaning like it would snap any second. Then, crash, the windows exploded inward. The storm was inside. It felt like the whole building was seconds from being peeled off the ground and thrown into the sky. I clenched my teeth. I prayed. We all prayed. And then it passed. The roar softened. The wind eased. The pressure in the air lifted. Bit by bit, the nightmare reversed itself. Minutes later, light poured back through the windows, and the air went still. We waited, just to be sure, before the lockdown was lifted. When I finally stood up, my back and legs ached. But I was alive. The school was still standing. I thought maybe we'd gotten lucky until I stepped outside. The field where the portables had been was empty. Gone. Nothing left but splinters and twisted pipes jutting out of the ground. Not even cinder blocks remained. Everything inside them, books, backpacks, my diary, my scrapbook, all of it had vanished into the sky. The realization hit me like another wave of wind. If I had stayed in my classroom that day, I wouldn't have stood a chance. I would have been erased along with it. It's hard to describe what that feels like, realizing how close death brushed against you when you were just a kid. But from that day forward, I never rolled my eyes at storm drills again. In Oklahoma, tornadoes are part of life. And I know, with every siren I hear, that respect is the only thing keeping me alive.